And here is President Obama by himself in the East Room.
Good afternoon, everybody. I just finished speaking with Secretary Lew and senior officials at the Treasury Department to discuss the investigation into IRS personnel who improperly screened conservative groups applying for tax-exempt status. And I look forward to taking some questions at tomorrow's press conference, but today I wanted to make sure to get out to all of you some information about what we're doing about this and where we go from here. I've reviewed the Treasury Department Watchdog's report, and the misconduct that it uncovered is inexcusable. It's inexcusable, and Americans are right to be angry about it, and I am angry about it. I will not tolerate this kind of behavior in any agency, but especially in the IRS, given the power that it has and the reach that it has in all of our lives. And as I said earlier, it should not matter what political stripe you're from. The fact of the matter is that the IRS has to operate with absolute integrity. The government generally has to conduct itself in a way that is true to the public trust. That's especially true for the IRS. So here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to hold the responsible parties accountable. Yesterday, I directed Secretary Lew to follow up on the IG audit to see how this happened and who was responsible, and to make sure that we understand all the facts. Today, Secretary Lew took the first step by requesting and accepting the resignation of the acting commissioner of the IRS. Because given the controversy surrounding this audit, it's important to institute new leadership that can help restore confidence going forward. Second, we're going to put in place new safeguards to make sure this kind of behavior cannot happen again. And I've directed Secretary Lew to ensure the IRS begins implementing the IG's recommendations right away. Third, we will work with Congress as it performs its oversight role. And our administration has to make sure that we are working hand in hand with Congress to get this thing fixed. Congress, Democrats and Republicans, owe it to the American people to treat that authority with the responsibility it deserves, and in a way that doesn't smack of politics or partisan agendas. Because I think one thing that you've seen is across the board, everybody believes what happened as reported in the IG report is an outrage. The good news is it's fixable, and it's in everyone's best interest to work together to fix it. I'll do everything in my power to make sure nothing like this happens again, by holding the responsible parties accountable, by putting in place new checks and new safeguards, and going forward by making sure that the law is applied as it should be, in a fair and impartial way. And we're going to have to make sure that the laws are clear so that we can have confidence that they are enforced in a fair and impartial way, and that there's not too much ambiguity surrounding these laws. So that's what I expect, that's what the American people deserve, and that's what we're going to do. Thank you very much.
President Obama in the East Room of the White House announcing that he is holding parties responsible for what happened at the IRS after seeing the IRS internal investigation, the Inspector General's report. He has had Secretary Lew, the Treasury Secretary, request and accept the resignation of the acting IRS Commissioner, Stephen Miller. He also said he's going to work with Congress to make sure that this does not happen again. A fairly short statement, as we predicted, taking action tonight after a paper statement last night. With that, let's bring back our panel for some reaction. Judge Napolitano, A.B. Stoddard, and Charles Krauthammer. Charles.
That was a holding operation. That was the absolute minimum he could have done. He relieves one person. He obviously had to. He had to relieve at least one person, and he chose, of course, the acting commissioner. But I would have expected more. The other actions he announced are, up to now, meaningless. Obama and this administration have said 100 times they're going to hold X, Y, or Z accountable for all kinds of behavior. In Benghazi, regarding a lot of other scandals, he even speaks about, Syrian generals are going to be held accountable. It means nothing. And then he says there's going to be an investigation from Treasury. Well, that just means the left hand of the government investigating the right hand. He did say he'll cooperate with Congress, But then he has the chutzpah to essentially warn Republicans not to make this into a political event, when what we're talking about is the IRS applying political criteria inexcusably, unconstitutionally, probably criminally, in deciding who it's going to investigate. So I found this, you know, the bare minimum. It'll hold him for 12 hours, but no more.
AB.
Well, I think Charles is right that this was the minimum that he had to do. Stephen Miller was briefed on this in 2011 and when he was commissioner 2012 in testimony in May of 2012, and then again in July of 2012 in testimony asked about it just last summer, did not divulge any information about special increased heightened scrutiny of conservative groups, even when asked about the process and whether or not that might have been happening. He had to go. What I disagree with Charles about is whether or not this will be the end. It's entirely possible that the Cincinnati office, which served like a field office for the processing of tax-exempt status applications, that people will be fired from there. But there's also people in Washington that are whose hands are just as dirty, who are working in coordination with the Cincinnati office, processing those claims and probably targeting people as well. And I imagine that they're going to try to find out who in Washington was complicit and before they start letting people in Ohio go. So I would hold out hope that there's more if people need to lose their jobs.
Yeah, I mean, we've already established, Judge, through people on Capitol Hill, that this came to Washington. It was outside Cincinnati. Stephen Miller became acting commissioner November 9th, 2012. This was, according to the IG's report, going back to 2010.
Yes.
Is when this began. And the previous commissioner testified on Capitol Hill that it wasn't happening in 2011, March of 2011.
That is one of the reasons that Charles is so correct that this is just a Band-Aid and this will only last for 12 hours. The other reason is this: having the Treasury Department investigate the IRS will not produce a serious result, in large measure because the Treasury Department can't seek indictments. Only an independent prosecutor, untainted by politics, not subject to the Attorney General, not caring what the President thinks, with a bevy of FBI agents answerable just to her or just to him, will get the truthful answer. How did this atmosphere commence in the Internal Revenue Service, in which decisions were made about the papers filed by taxpayers based on politics?
To that point, Charles, the Speaker of the House today says, now my question isn't about who's going to resign. My question is who is going to jail over this scandal.
Well, that's why I think we're going to have to hear a lot tomorrow. The President made news. About the only real news he made is that he's going to have a news event tomorrow. He's going to answer questions.
Well, he is answering questions with the Turkish Prime Minister, Erdogan, who's in town. But he will answer questions.
It'll be one or two, and probably in Turkish, and his answer will be in Turkish. He'll prepare for his conference tomorrow. But I think that, I mean, the first thing people are going to ask is why not an independent counsel? If you did it over a Mickey Mouse, unimportant, trivial, alleged leak over Valerie Plame, and you had millions of dollars and a year or two spent on that, surely the corruption of the IRS. And the question is, how does this happen? In Cincinnati, is that a hotbed of left-wing activity? Obviously, there's an atmosphere here, and somebody has to find it. He has to have a subpoena, and it cannot be the Treasury Department or anybody involved in this administration. It can't even be the DOJ. It's got to be from the outside.
We will try to get more information on how many questions he'll take with Prime Minister Erdogan tomorrow.
The under-over is 2.
Okay. Panel, stick around. Much more to talk about on the other side of a break.